Hey, what's going on, guys? This is your old pal CHH. So this is something I'm starting to see a lot of times when I do some reviews or just talk about stuff coming. And listen, I am not an expert on this. A lot of this stuff is pretty like on the surface, but I do think it is worth talking about because, you know, when it comes to collecting anything now, especially horror films or just films in general, whatever format you're collecting for is starting to become super important, especially going forward. So one of the big things I'm seeing lately is on certain new releases is why aren't there new Blu-rays? Well, that's a good question. Sometimes there are, sometimes there aren't. I want to give you an example of some of the stuff I'm talking about, specifically some newer stuff, and as well as why some of it evidently is not and why others do. How do we do this going forward? What's the game plan going forward in terms of being a collector? That's the idea, and my best case solution for making this happen. So one of the things that has been rampant lately, especially with these releases right here, specifically talking about Arrow Video, they have launched a new run with Warner Brothers. Now here are some of the titles in question. We just reviewed these: Texas Chainsaw 03, Texas Chainsaw The Beginning, Trick or Treat, which was a great release on 4K, and then of course the legendary, in my opinion, they were great, Friday the 13th 4Ks. We had the remake, we had Jason Goes Straight to Hell, which I know the channel is kind of growing, so some people don't get it. Straight to Hell is what my brother called it on accident back in like 2009. I thought it was funny. I told the story, so everybody in this channel calls it Jason Goes Straight to Hell. And then Jason X. Now, these releases, I love these releases. Most of them are, in my opinion, close to perfect, or at the very least, really good. I'm really happy with what Arrow Video's done with these. But the biggest thing a lot of people say is, Christian, where's the Blu-rays? Why didn't I wish these came with 4K scan Blu-rays? Well, the reason a lot of these don't have Blu-rays, if any of these, is because of the way this deal is structured, from what I understand, with Warner Brothers. And it's important to know this going forward. Now, this isn't always going to be the case, but this seems to be the case with certain titles. Now, for instance, when it comes to these so far, a lot of these have Blu-rays that are still available to this very day that you can buy. And I think the thinking is some of these, Warner Brothers doesn't want to necessarily compete with themselves, I think. And the way they structure these licenses with Arrow, the way Cliff had basically said in certain interviews, is they get a license for a 4K release of the film. With Warner already having Blu-rays out there in the market to be available to purchase, they don't want to compete with themselves. Okay, well, we want to have the 4K audience. We're going to let Arrow license that for them. But if people just want a Blu-ray of Jason X, well, Warner has a studio release of that. Now, the issue, I think, is being able to, okay, well, if you're not a 4K person, but you want a 4K scan of that, understandable, but there's more to that story as well. The Scream Factory box set is still available to buy, and that's another thing. Scream Factory still has that box set available where they have 2K scans of both Jason X and Jason Goes to Hell. So not only that, you have the circulation of these two films is pretty vast. You can get those versions from the Scream Factory box set, and they seem to still be selling pretty well. I think the Friday the 13th box set from Scream Factory is still selling, from what I understand. It still is in the market, and it's doing well. So that's the issue with that. And going back to that as well, not only can you buy Friday the 13th's Blu-ray available on Amazon now or anywhere, but Scream Factory also has that Blu-ray available in that set. And that is a Warner Blu-ray. That's not a Scream Factory Blu-ray. That is just Scream Factory purchasing the discs from Warner to have that release in that box set as well. But here's the thing. That is not always the case. Sometimes these deals can be structured with Warner, apparently, where that is not a 4K thing only. Now, it's important to know this, obviously, beforehand so you can be prepped. For instance, Spawn is getting a 4K from Arrow, but they also have a Blu-ray version available. Now, I think the reasoning behind that is possibly because the Blu-ray for Spawn is super old, and they're not as concerned with that, maybe. Maybe Spawn doesn't sell anymore on DVD or Blu-ray in the market, so Arrow was able to get a license for that. And I'll be honest with you, I actually pre-ordered the Blu-ray version because the special effects in that movie look abysmal. They look so bad, so I figured, that's not really something I need on 4K, although it's going to be great to see it in a restoration on Blu-ray. But I got the Blu-ray version of that. And I also want to let Arrow know that me personally, I still am a Blu-ray person as well as a 4K person, and there are times where I just genuinely want to support the Blu-ray version of that. So when it comes to that, it's not necessarily Arrow. I think the point I want to get across from this, because I see these comments like this, it's not. I see a lot of comments that will say, "I wish Arrow would realize that a lot of us are still Blu-ray people." They do. They do. And I'm not trying to go to bat for Arrow, but the reality is sometimes the way these films get licensed is strictly that. They can only do the license for a 4K version. And that's the case, like I said, especially with most of these. But the reality is it's not always going to be the case. So it's clear that Arrow still knows that there are Blu-ray people out there, and they want to have that option available. A lot of times when they do remasters or reissues, they'll still have like Cruising, for instance. The Blu-ray is still available, the 4K is still available, but I recommend getting the 4K version because not only does it come with the Blu-ray, but they de-Friedkin the color timing on that release. Although that's kind of a touchy subject because it's William Friedkin. But anyway, but here's the one thing I actually want to give a shout of praise to Scream Factory for. They've still been very good about this. And when it comes to their reissued stuff on 4K or new stuff, they've been very good. I want to give some examples here. Last Voyage of the Demeter, they did a 4K of this, but they still managed to have the Blu-ray available on this, which was from the restoration. Same thing with Night of the Creeps. This was another upgrade, and they had a Blu-ray of this. I still recommend getting the Blu-ray version, even though it's not as good of a scan. It's still very impressive, but the reality is this version doesn't have the theatrical ending on it at all. Silent at Deadly Night, even another instance of a reissue where they included the Blu-ray with the restoration. Wolfman, this was a new release from them, but still, even though it was a new release, they were managed to have the Blu-ray version available, as well as one of the more recent ones, Humanoids from the Deep. So, all these companies always have issues, but it is pretty cool to see that Scream Factory still does that. Unfortunately, I never really hear the blood cry for Scream Factory better include the Blu-ray versions, because most people see that they do a lot of reissues, and they make a lot of money doing that. So, of course, they're going to continue to do that, but that's the reality. But here's another thing. Even that is changing. As you can see, the Sleepaway Camp films, which we reviewed and gave pretty positive reviews for these, all things considered, these are from Inner Positives. These only have 4Ks. Now, why is that? The reason that is the case is because Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, Scream Factory lost the license to. They didn't renew it because apparently they didn't sell. But then Sandpiper Pictures picked up the home video rights for the Blu-rays. So if you want to get these films on Blu-ray today, you have to get it from a different company. So when the 4K license came up, Scream Factory scored these again. It's so funny. These two went out of print, but then all of a sudden, Part 2 and 3 get their 4K before the first movie does, while they retain the license for the first movie. Go figure. But that's why these are only 4K only. They're not Blu-ray. And I get it. Some people are like, well, I want to see these movies in 4K scans from the Inner Positive as well on Blu-ray. I'm not a 4K person. You're SOL. It sucks because that's the way these licenses work now, because Blu-ray is still a format that people buy, but 4K is. So you got all these different licenses going on now for different formats, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but it seems to be the way this stuff works now. So that's why you've got these companies having these different movies with 4K and then Blu-ray. And from what I understand, Scream Factory still has the Blu-ray license for Trick or Treat. So if you're a Blu-ray person and you want Trick or Treat, you have to get the Scream Factory version. Yep, it's a one-disc release, like I said. So the licenses now are getting tricky because of the way these formats are. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Another reason with not Scream Factory, but the Elm Street box set not having Blu-rays, the way it was described to me is that in America, WB doesn't see the merit for including them because maybe physical media isn't as strong over here. So not to put that in there. That's what I was told. And that's why overseas you see that they still have the Blu-rays in there. It's still questionable as to why, to be honest with you, because they're just the Blu-rays from the old set. But for some reason, maybe they figure, well, a lot of Blu-ray people want to own this box set for the physical media aspect of it. So we're going to put those in there. I don't know. Apparently, physical media is different overseas than in America. There's still apparently retail stores that sell physical media and thrive, while over here, physical media stores are dying constantly. It's, you know, the beautiful thing is we have a lot of mom and pop online retailers now for physical media in America, which is great. But in terms of brick and mortar places, I mean, FYE is on its last leg. I think most of them are shutting down, which is a shame. Mine, I loved it. I shop there as much as I can. But when it comes to that, that's why you're starting to see some companies will be able to get the license for the Blu-rays. And stuff like this, Scream Factory purchased the Corman library, from what I understand. And in other instances, they only have 4Ks because the Blu-rays are licensed out to a different company. It's different format, different license. That's the way it's been explained to me. So keep that in mind going forward with these Warner titles. It's going to be iffy. You should probably have a good guess based off of the title when it gets announced whether it has a Blu-ray or not. Obviously, stuff like this, Trick or Treat, Scream Factory still has a Blu-ray for that. The Friday the 13th films, they're still included in the Friday box set. And then the Texas Chainsaw films, honestly, I thought there might have been a chance those would have, but apparently not. Apparently, Warner said, okay, well, we have our Blu-rays available out there. That's good enough for people. You guys can do the 4K. Don't put a Blu-ray in there because then we're competing with ourselves. That's the one thing that was always explained to me with certain titles, is they don't want to compete with themselves. So that's it in a nutshell, guys. Obviously, it's different from title to title, but just know the best case scenario, the solution I can give is... the reality is I have a QLED TV, but I do a lot of my reviews based off of this TV in here. This is a regular LED, LCD, whatever you call them, because the reality is 99% of people watching movies own those. Those other TVs, they are quite expensive. And I want to review it. I make sure I watch a lot of these, whether I watch bits and pieces after watching them in my living room on my nicer TV, or if I just watch them in here. That's the way I want to watch them. And the thing I want to say about that is those TVs are cheap. You can get, I think that TV, that's a 58-inch Hisense, which I like Hisense. It's not an expensive brand, but I got that for like maybe, the TV was maybe $200, $220, and you get them on sale. TVs are cheaper. The players are a little bit more money. But you could get them on sale occasionally. Watch for sales. You can get Panasonic players for like $120. Your best bet is to just try to game plan to become a 4K person, because then you're opening yourself up to everything going forward. You just are. That does not mean I am not a Blu-ray person. I love Blu-ray. I still support Blu-ray. I do. Like I said, I'm getting the Blu-ray version for Spawn, which is still from a restoration. Otherwise, I wouldn't do that. If it, for some reason, that was just an old Blu-ray that they were including, I wouldn't do it. It is still from the new restoration, but I still love Blu-ray. I think Blu-ray is a fantastic format. I think it's one of the most versatile formats. I really do. It's been able to continue to push its limits from the way it started to where it is today. So, but your best case scenario is to just try to become a 4K person. You don't have to break your bank to do so. But that's your best case going forward, because then you never have to worry about, I really hope they have to include the Blu-ray. So that's my whole thing for this. I just wanted to talk about it because I see it in my comments a lot. Why do they not include the Blu-ray? Does Arrow not realize there's still Blu-ray people out there, etc., etc.? And I don't think that's Arrow's intent. I think clearly they want to make sure their stuff is available for as many consumers as possible. But sometimes it's just not the case. They can't get the Blu-rays for certain titles. So that's it, guys. I hope this helps somebody out there. Thank y'all for watching. God bless y'all. Talk to y'all very soon. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.